So you need 23 million naira to do that. Some of the panelists have mentioned the fact that one of the biggest challenges to accessibility to EVs in Nigeria is financing. But I want us to run, the mathematics. So here in Nigeria today, according to data, there's about 9 to 10,000 high net worth individuals with about $1 million. Now, let's talk about the number of people amongst the 200 million people in Nigeria that can comfortably afford to buy a brand new car at 23 million. Throw in the corrupt politicians, the Yahoo boys, and those that are also working legitimately. I'm sorry, I don't think it's more than 200,000. Now, there's about 11 million to 13 million vehicles on Nigerian roads. It took probably 40, 50 years for those guys to get to that number in Nigeria. My question to the panelists would then be, what would it take for 10% of the cars on Nigerian roads to become EVs? So I'm not asking for 100%. 10% of 12 million, that's 1.2 million. I want to run another mathematics because we are in financing, but we are not financing EV. Of course, when I mean EV sedans, we could finance the motorcycles, the tricycles, they are affordable enough. The best financing available that I know of in Nigeria now for, you could use it to access EV is about 20%, right? Now, let's talk about the GAC Wolling, 23 million naira, 20% equity contribution. So give or take, you now have 18 million naira to pay back 5 years at 20% per year. That's 100%, 36 million in 5 years, right? That's 600,000 every month. My question is, how many youths who are the ones that are supposed to drive the EV revolution can afford to take 600,000 naira from their salary every single month for the next 5 years? Thank you very much.
So if I get you correctly, your question is firstly, the system around retrofitting already like fossil fuel powered vehicles to EV vehicles. Then the second question is around how many people can afford.
It's about what it will take to drive, what it will take to convert 10% of the vehicles in Nigerian roads now to this thing outside of finance. Because from my own point of view, I don't believe it's just about financing. Because I just gave you mathematics now that shows that the largest number of people, the youths, cannot afford what it takes, even if financing is available with the present best structure available. Not a lot of people can tell me where they will get 20% per annum in Nigeria now, but I know it's available. Most of what's readily available. I know Orbit. I met you guys at Jitex, right? So I know you had access to some government funding, but are you doing 20%? Let's be honest. So run your maths and tell me, if it was a proper EV, will link 23 million, how can a youths here afford it? Thank you very much.
So, would you like to?
Okay, so I'm an engineer, so I would at least speak from my perspective and my angle. So we did the math, and we all know that for EVs, the battery is literally about half the price of the EV, right? I believe that if Nigeria can key into battery production and seeing how we can produce batteries locally. We did the math, right? And we saw that if we produce our batteries locally, for instance, just for the two-wheelers, right, we would spend somewhere around 40% the amount we bought, the normal batteries from China, right, including shipping and the rest of them. I strongly believe that if Nigeria keys in, we have stakeholders, people that, are willing to produce batteries locally, right? I believe it will go a long way in driving down the cost. Yeah. So I think that's the answer I'll give from my perspective. Yeah.
So from my own perspective, again, we need to ensure that there's huge collaboration amongst across board. The government must invest heavily. And of course, the private sector must also come on board. And in fact, the people that are also going to use this must also know that this is the first phase of, deployment of EV technology in our country. Then from the start, it's going to be like this. So with time, the whole cost of getting an EV technology is going to still reduce. But we must be able to understand that the first phase of using it is going to be expensive. For us to trickle down the price, then all of us must agree to come on board. Like, for example, he said that there's need for us to have battery assembly stations in our country, because the cost of battery is almost half of the cost of any EV technology that we have now, because it is driven by that battery. So things like that are things that we must focus on. The policy that they've also talked about, and I know that in the policy there will be a lot of elements in that policy that will enable all of your fears to be able to be achieved. So we must also see through on how we can also amplify our own advocacy. So I would like for that aspect of the law, that particular bill, to be exposed to the youth constituency. We can push for a speedy passage of that bill through different members, House of Reps, different member House of Senate that we have. We can tell them the need for them to implement that policy and the relative importance of that bill to the entire youth constituency. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to all the contributors. We don't have any chance for any further questions, please. No, we are very sorry. Maybe after the event, you can reach out to the Arthurite team, or even now, you can reach out to the Arthurite team and relay your questions. But right now, we have so much left to do, and we don't have much time to do them. So, are we still doing the interactive session?
No.
Okay.
We are going to the next panel session. Where is the topic? So we are going straight to the water. All right, so we can be taking water while the session is going on. And the next session is going to be mobility in motion, technology, operations, and people powering Nigerians' EV adoption. We are going to be starting the session right now for the want of time. And we are going to be calling our panelists. So the first person on our panel session this time is Mr. Akin Akimbogu. And is he here? Mr. Akin Akimbogu. So please, can we give him a round of applause as he goes onto the stage?
Please, a round of applause. Please, a round of applause. Water should not distract you, please. Thank you.
All right, so let me just read his bio. Mr. Akikumi is the co-founder and vice president of mobility at Kore Mobility and Energies, where he is driving Africa's electric mobility and clean energy transformation. He is a Korean certified civil engineer with over 20 years of experience, spanning civil engineering, business leadership, and social entrepreneurship. He holds a master's degree in water and environmental energy from University of Lagos and an MBA in business marketing. Beyond engineering, Mr. Akikomi is a leadership coach, mentor, and storyteller dedicated to helping individuals and organizations unlock their full potentials. Through Kore, he has helped scale electric mobility solutions across Nigeria, contributing to sustainable transport innovation and green job creation. He's also the founder of Mindvolution, a coaching platform focused on leadership and performance development. He's a TEDx speaker, published author of 5 books, and Duke of Small Talks. Mr. Akinkomi is passionate about storytelling, innovation, and building future-ready African leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, can we give it up for Mr. Akinkomi? Welcome, sir. Thank you, sir. So we are going to be calling our next speaker to the stage. We have Ms. Mildred N. Ekanem. She's the director of Lagride Nigeria Limited. So she's coming on stage right now. Please, can we give her a round of applause? Welcome, ma'am. All right, Mrs. Mildred is a seasoned executive, legal strategist, and operations leader with over 15 years of experience across corporate law, regulatory compliance, business management, and organizational transformation. She currently serves as the executive director of Lagride Nigeria Limited. She is Nigeria's leading electric vehicle ride-hailing platform, where she drives strategic initiative focused on sustainable mobility, EV adoption and operational excellence, and the advancement of technology-driven transportation solutions. Prior to joining Lagride, she held senior leadership positions as CIG Motors, GAC Motors Nigeria, where she played a key role in establishing multiple assembly plants and strengthening corporate governance, compliance, and operational systems. She's a qualified barrister and solicitor of the Supreme Court of Nigeria. Mrs. Mildred is recognized for her expertise in corporate governance, business strategy, and people-centered leadership. Once again, can we give it up for Ms. Mildred? Welcome once again, ma'am. All right, we'll be calling our next panelist on stage. We have Mr. Adetoya Bamiduro. He's the CEO of Max. Is he available? Okay, please. Can we welcome on stage once again with a round of applause Mr. Adetoya Bamiduro as he comes up on stage? Okay, as he comes up, I'm going to be reading his bio. Mr. Adetoya is the CEO at Max. He leads the team, sets strategic direction, and drives partnership at Max. Mr. Adetoya studied computer science at the University of Ibadan, where he built one of the Nigeria first mobility platforms. He moved on to build a stellar career as a software engineer, product manager, and management consultant at leading companies such as USC Group, Prime Waterhouse Coopers, NLNG, a Shell subsidiary, Conga.com, and Delberg. Mr. Adetoya previously delivered a production optimization platform that generated $100 million in revenue in 1 year of operation.
Please
Mr.
clap,
Adetoya
please clap, please clap.
Studied
Please
for
clap.
his MBA at the MIT Sloan School and the London Business School from 2013 to 2015. While at MIT, he co-founded Max alongside Chinedu Azodo. Mr. Adetoya is now focused on building Max into a unicorn. Can we give it up once again for Mr. Adetoya? Welcome, sir. Welcome. Then we have our next panelist. Ladies and gentlemen, can we give it up for Miss Ebere Nwokoro? She's AWS. Sorry. So can we give it up once again for Miss Ebere Nkoro? She's AWS Partner Development Manager, and as she gets on stage, Miss Ebere Nkoro is a Senior Partner Success Manager for Enterprise, East and West Africa at Amazon Web Service, where she drives strategic partnership and digital transformation across the region. Tech Cabal, a highly accomplished technology sales executive, she brings a 10-year track record of exceeding sales targets and driving business growth, having held key positions at companies like Amazon Web Service, Microsoft, Oracle, Cisco, McAfee, XTI Data, and Dimension Data. She is renowned for her expertise in solutions and value selling, customer management, and digital transformation. Ms. Ebere is a strategic thinker who develops effective sales strategies and leads team to increase revenue. She has established and nurtured relationships with global system integrators, Fortune 500 firms, and small businesses. In addition to her professional achievements, she is passionate about fostering innovation and empowering African entrepreneurs, and is dedicated to creating an environment that encourages creativity and supports growth of African businesses. Please, can we give it up once again for Ms. Ebere? Welcome, ma'am. All right, so we are introducing our next panelist. We have Ms. Adebusola Fasoya. She's the Customer Success Manager for SGS Mobility. So Ms. Adebusola Fasoya is a sustainable advocate and e-mobility professional. She is passionate about advancing sustainable development, clean energy adoption, youth-focused ESG education in Nigeria. She is the founder of Green Generation Sustainability Awareness Initiative, called the Green Gen Sustainability, where she leads efforts to promote sustainability awareness and simplify ESG concepts for young people and communities. Personally, she has contributed to the growth of electric mobility solutions in Nigeria through driver development, stakeholder engagement, and operational programs within the country's emerging EV ecosystem. Her interests span through energy transition, sustainable transportation, circular economy, and inclusive green growth across Africa. So, as she has gotten on stage, can we just give her a round of applause? Thank you so much, ma. Welcome, ma. So we are going to have our co-hosts anchor this panel session. So as he goes up on stage, please, can you just give a round of applause to my amiable co-hosts?
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Please clap till I get on stage, I beg. I've been telling you to clap for other people, so clap for me. Thank you very much. And thank you to our amicable panelists for joining us for this session. This is an amazing set of panelists, and we hope you get to learn so much from this session. Yes. So, my first question will be going to you, Mr. Akin. So, Core's vision bundles vehicles, renewables, financing, and workforce development, right? Together, why is that? Sorry, please go back to the previous question. Yes, thank you. Why is that integrated bundle necessary in Nigeria when in other markets the layers stand alone?
Hello. Good afternoon to everybody, and thank you for having me today. Right. So this is a very interesting question, because when we talk about electric vehicles or electric mobility in Nigeria, at the nascent stage of the market, whoever is playing would need to have an integrated ecosystem to thrive, right? Because you can't bring in the vehicles and you're waiting for somebody else to bring in the chargers, for instance. Or you can't have the tricycles and then you don't separate the batteries from it so that it's competitive. It can compete favorably with its equivalent, which is in fossil fuel. So basically, at this stage of the market, what has to happen is an integrated ecosystem that has both the financing layered in or embedded into it. It also has the charging infrastructure set up, even if it's just for that fleet, that commercial fleet. What is interesting is the way the market in Nigeria would evolve is a lot different from how it's done in the third world country. And that's because of the uniqueness of our climate. A good chunk of the movements that happen, whether it's in logistics or it's in human commute or whether it's in corporate, depend a lot on the two-wheelers and the three-wheelers. And that's not what you'd find in Europe, for instance. So what it means is that the solution to our own problems has to be unique to us as a country. And so the advancement of electric mobility in Nigeria is obviously going to have to start a lot. We've said that over and over again with the two-wheelers and the three-wheelers. And so when you bring the two-wheelers and three-wheelers in and begin to localize the components and how they function, you then also have to consider how that ecosystem that would make them thrive happen. Now, what we've done first, for instance, in Kore, is to deploy these tricycles, for instance. We started first with three-wheelers. Deploy them in locations where we can have those integrated ecosystem to support it, how it operates. And that requires us to also stimulate the stakeholders who would play a role within that ecosystem. So for instance, you have those who are providing power, renewable energy powers. You have those who are providing that power as a service. You've got those who are providing or owning the assets, the batteries and the charging infrastructure. You've got those who are providing support for technical support, upskilling those who exist within that ecosystem, ensuring that they understand the basic tenets for repairing these tricycles, or checking out how to repair them or replace the spare parts. You also need to have the ecosystem of those who can recover assets if they fail. And then you have financing going into it, which is where it gets tricky. No financial institution in this country, whether they are providing you grants or whether they are literally just providing some sort of financing to run it, would be confident enough to invest in that ecosystem unless they can get data from that ecosystem. And what's happening is that data doesn't exist unless somebody has quite done it. And you can't do it unless you have an integrated ecosystem to run it, acquire data, and then present to these financiers and give them the comfort to say, yes, we're willing to invest, we're willing to finance those who go into that space. So for Kore, rolling out was very important. It was very important for us, or it is still very important for us, to have that integrated ecosystem to ensure that it thrives. This works for the three-wheelers. It also works for the four-wheelers. Cap Zero is a product of Kore as well. And for Cap Zero to operate efficiently, just like any other ride-hailing business in this country or in Lagos, you must have a charging network that can allow you to charge the vehicles and get them on road on time. And that is one of the tenets that has, guided the way we have approached it strategically and tactically.
Amazing answer. Please, if you want to clap properly. Yeah, that's something I've actually noticed, that a lot of things, a lot of businesses that want to come into Nigeria, they have to fine-tune a lot of their like their businesses, everything around their ecosystems, around how Nigeria works, because Nigeria is a very, very peculiar ecosystem. So even things that, like you said, work in other third world countries, they don't work exactly the same way in Nigeria. So they have to like fine tune and focus more on like the 2-wheeler, 3-wheelers before we then, when that ecosystem is built up, then we go into the 4-wheeler ones. That's an amazing question. Please, a round of applause again. Yes, so my next question will be going to Mr. Adetayo. Mr. Adetayo. Max has put electric 2- and 3-wheelers in the hands of thousands of riders with financing built in. From a unit economics standpoint, when does electric actually beat petrol for a Lagos rider, and what makes that calculation work?
Okay, all right, thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. Always a privilege to have a chance to talk about what we do and also talk about the industry at large. Well, I'm a little surprised the questions are coming to the men first. Whatever happened to ladies first? But anyway, the question is about unit economics, right? In our experience, the question is why EVs are one of the great pioneers of the EV industry as a whole. Obviously, is Elon Musk, right? And if you follow his narrative, right, from the late 2000s to 2015, 2016, 17, a lot of the narrative then was about the climate impact, reducing carbon emissions and so on and so forth, right? And then the products they built back then, the Tesla models, those models were mostly bought by, even in the US and Europe, by middle class people, right? People who had some extra money. The average person wasn't the person buying a Tesla, right? You had to have a little bit of money. But what has happened over the last, let's say, 5 to 7 years, is that the innovation around EVs and batteries and other aspects of the renewable industry as a whole, solar panels, etc., is that industry has now delivered very strong cost competitiveness against legacy industries like petrol. So now you can buy an EV at about the same price, or in many cases, much lower price than the equivalent petrol engine car, right? But that's not where it stops. From an energy cost standpoint and a maintenance standpoint, you also spend a lot less. So today in the EV industry, you no longer hear so much about buy an EV because you're saving the planet. No. Now it's buy an EV because it is actually cost competitive. Now, what's even more exciting is that the trajectory is just getting started. The components are going to be more affordable. The cells are going to be more powerful and cheaper as well over the medium term. So now that EVs are competitive, in 10 years, they're going to be even more competitive. And of course, when you look at what's going on in Iran today and in the Middle East, where oil prices have gone up because of conflict, and this is a vicious cycle that the world there's always one war somewhere that impacts on oil prices. We know the only ultimate trajectory for petrol prices is up. And that even makes EVs much more competitive. Now, to your question around unit economics, the fundamental thing here is, or two things here. Number one is the capex cost. It has to be affordable enough. That is already proven, right? EVs and batteries are now, very cost competitive from a capex standpoint. When you then shift to the OPEX, right, which is the cost of energy, when you come to a market like Nigeria, the biggest challenge with that is the energy infrastructure. The point at which EVs ultimately will hit mainstream adoption is really two things. First and foremost, that the energy infrastructure is actually there. And that's the race that is on now, is to actually build it out. And what I find very exciting with what's going on is, and even Max is doing this now, is the way people think about energy infrastructure in other markets is someone else generates the power and someone else sets up the actual charging, cabinets or the chargers. But for some of us that have been in the industry for a couple of years now, we realize that even on the generation side, it's not a given. It's not a given. And that's why for a company like Max, we've also taken on power generation from a solar standpoint. And now we are building out solar charging stations. And it's not just us that are doing that. A lot of other innovators are realizing that to actually deliver a compelling product that is profitable, you have to control the essential layers that determine whether you actually have a product. In our space, importing an EV or assembling an EV in itself is not a product, it's not complete. Guaranteeing access to energy reliably for your customers is what actually ensures that you deliver a meaningful product. And doing that in a way that is profitable for you as well. So in our case, when we were struggling with getting reliable access to power and electricity across our charging stations, we did a lot more analysis, and then we looked at, okay, do you know what? If you set up a solar power charging station with some backup batteries and ESS system in place, yes, it has some capex involved, but what is the cost per kilowatt hour compared to other alternatives? When we looked at, it doesn't make sense to use diesel to like charge batteries, but let's even look at it. When we looked at it, it didn't make sense. It's, 500, 600 naira per kilowatt hour. But when we looked at solar, especially if you optimize your supply chain, you get the right equipment, the right panels that give you the right warranty conditions and the right longevity, we saw prices as low as 18, 19 naira per kilowatt hour. So essentially, by controlling your own generation and finding the capital to invest in it, you can achieve reliable power at band B price in Nigeria. That reality exists today. Now, when we found that out, we were shocked that why isn't every renewable energy company out there trying to deploy power at scale for EV companies? But I'm not going to sit around and keep asking that question. I'm going to do it if they refuse to do it, and that's what we're doing. But to hone in on your question, the point at which it becomes profitable is when you can guarantee energy for your customers and do it reliably and cost effectively.
Yeah, thank you so much. Please, another round of applause for that answer, please. Because you are so right. Because I think more recently the news and everyone is talking about EV now, and beyond the what's it called, the ecological benefits of it, it's now the financial for the everyday man. People can now see the viability of affording an EV vehicle. So the next thing is just making it possible for people that can actually afford it to be able to charge it, because that's the entire idea of it. So yeah, thank you so much. Please, another round of applause for that amazing response to the question. My next question is going to Mildred. Yes. Lagride is Lagos State backed, but commercially run, right? From the inside, what makes a government-backed EV operator work where pure private and pure public versions might struggle?
Okay. Good afternoon again, everyone. Before I get into the question directly, I'll just talk about the vision. It all starts with a vision, and Lagride today, for those who don't know, have a double backing, both the government and private sector. Like he said, the new Lagride today does have government backing, and it is very important. The beauty of the government backing is it gives us alignment, all right? Because as we know, Lagos State in particular, the government of Lagos has a vision for transportation. So when the public vision meets private sector, production and work, it just makes everything come to reality quicker. Now, the whole vision might have started with Lagos State, and then with the combination of the vision of the private sector here with Lagride, which is Chief Diana Chen, a woman with a vision, and we know she has a group of automobile infrastructure, as it were. They've come together, and of course with the backing of Ibile, it's been not very easy, but very possible. The biggest challenge, though, with these things is there's an expectation from the public when you say, oh, it's government backed, but then they are commercial realities. So how we marry the two is where we really see our success story, right? So while the government backing gives us alignment, it gives investors trust, it gives the public confidence, right? The commercial realities now bring the real issues to the table, makes things work, and creates the balance in the system, right? So I would say that is where both sectors fuse, marry together, bring a collaboration, and bring the partnership and the dream to reality. Thank Thank you.
Yes, great answer. Please give her a round of applause. Yes, thank you so much for that response. My next question is to Ms. Berry. The whole premise of this summit is that cloud and AI will power EV ecosystems. From your seats at AWS, what's the most underused part of the cloud stack for Nigerian EV operators and charging networks today?
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, I think to respond to that, I would take us back to what AWS is from a cloud infrastructure point of view. We don't have EV cars, so that's not that's not the role that we play, but we basically power innovation. In all the discussions that are happening here, from Corey to Max to, the cars themselves versus the riders, with the cars versus the charging stations versus the whole ecosystem. Now, wherever a gap exists, you need someone to think through the innovation to solve that problem. So that's where we come in. Now, from the existing EVs and all, we see that what will drive what the right next innovation should be is data. So how much of that data is available, accessible, being used? And that's, that's the part that is still, what did you call it? Underused part, The underused part is basically data. So today we've got our, EV cars, on the road. How are decisions being taken around where to place these cars? What day of the week do we see most of these cars being used? Because say Max, for example, it's a business. There's money to be made. Where should I invest more? What routes in Nigeria should I invest more? And this is where solutions that Arthurite is building is kind of helping the ecosystem. So data is, I believe, where most of it hasn't been used, but that's where we come in to kind of help that part. And the reason I say data is in the room today, are we thinking of EVs as what? Someone wants to buy, are we here to buy a car versus are we here to see what opportunities exist? But then to know where the right opportunities exist, it is data. Are we getting the right information, putting cars on the right track? Someone talked about batteries the other day. How much of IoT versus edge computing is happening in each car to understand the kind of batteries, their battery life, to know that, okay, this car can go as far as Igondo versus, I'm going to put this car on this route. So it's data basically that we haven't seen that much usage. And that's where we come in to encourage, say, an Arthurite going into all of these businesses and building right and helping better decision making.
Yeah, thank you so much. Please, a round of applause for that response. Yeah, honestly, data is really the new gold. Like even the current AI wave, data is the thing everybody's running after. You heard that these AI models are trained on huge amounts of data. So data is extremely important for any ecosystem to be built, for any ecosystem to flourish in the economy that they are trying to be built in. So that was an amazing answer. Thank you so much. The next question is going to Ms. Adebusola. Customer success means seeing the rider and operator from the inside, right? What do users of EV mobility in Nigeria love? And what do they quietly complain about that the industry isn't fixing fast enough?
Okay. We've spoken. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me on this panel today. All right, so we've spoken a lot about EV industry and its adoption here in Nigeria. And a lot of people, when they hear EV, they tend to only think about the vehicle. There's a huge ecosystem around the EV adoption here in Nigeria and globally, as it were. And at the center of that, we have the people, which we cannot emphasize because they are the ones that really do the adoption of this vehicle. Okay, so we have the initial novelty of the technology. Everyone is excited about this new technology. I remember when we started our program at SGX Mobility. And okay, let me start by introducing SGX. So we are into the three-wheelers. So we cater to the informal sector, those drivers. So when we introduced the EV tricycles to them, that it runs on battery and they don't use fuel, there was this excitement and eagerness to try out this new technology. Okay, so along the line, when we began engagement with them, they discovered, actually with the models we brought in engaging them, they discovered it wasn't exactly what they are used to at the end of the day, okay? So we started with EV technology. You know, you've heard about the charging infrastructure and battery management and every other ecosystem that enables the smooth running of the industry. So one challenge the end users face and what they struggle with the EV is about the battery infrastructure, the energy system, and I think that's one challenge they complain about, that we are not fixing fast enough. And also because with this EV technology, we are bringing up new models and new earning schemes, which is different from what they are used to. Many of these riders are used to picking up passengers, because we deal in the three-wheeler space, picking up passengers on the go, get their money, but we are bringing in innovative ways using digital systems, which they are not quite familiar to. So they have to undergo training. So a lot of challenges come with that change. We are disrupting what they are used to. So the change, some of them are averse to change. So when they start with the eagerness, we see that eagerness drop along the line because they are just stuck in their old trades. Yeah, so change is one thing. Then also with new technology comes its own challenges. So we had challenges around charging, like I mentioned initially, of course, which we are working through. But the first adopters will always be the ones to take the first hit. So that also, we saw a drop in interest levels, but of course we are addressing all those. So so like I've said, the interest level from change, battery, and also the affordability of this tricycle. I'm surprised when you mentioned that EVs are quite affordable. Well, I have my own reservations about that, and I'm sure the people who utilize this assets also have their own reservations, because that's a big challenge. To them, it's not as affordable as they want it to be. Do you understand? And they don't have access to financing. I know it's a topic we've been speaking about over time. So that's also one challenge, which I think is seeing a slow movement in addressing their concerns. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. But just a side tangent from that question. When you mentioned battery as the issue, do you mean like there aren't enough chargers, or like you think we should, are you kind of hinting that we need to be producing batteries locally or something? What exactly did you mean?
Okay, so when I say battery, I'm talking about the charging infrastructures that support those batteries. Okay, so we know we have challenges with our power, the energy sector, and as Max said by my side there, that they are going into providing power for charging. Yeah, so you will see that that's a major challenge for major operators in the scheme. So that, of course, we also encountered that challenge, and we had to start being independent providers of our own energy source. And during that process, you would get a lot of these end users lose their interest. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think charging is like the final frontier now, apart from like the major costs issues, but charging is like the main thing. Yeah, thank you so much for that response. Please, a round of applause for her. Yes, so my next question is to Akin once more. Akin, you are a TEDx speaker on storytelling for impact. what story is the Nigerian EV industry not telling well enough, and what should it be telling instead?
Thank you. I think there are different stories we can tell about how the adoption of electric vehicles is going in Nigeria. It depends on the perspective that you choose to look at it. We could see the problems, or we could see the opportunities. Now, whichever side you decide to look, it would determine how you approach the market. Because you can either run away from the problems, or you find innovative way of getting past the problem. And so when we talk about the stories that we tell about this journey, we are speaking from the point of view of someone who's participating in that journey, not someone who's staying on the sideline and watching how it's going. The truth is, the retail part of the market for electric vehicle adoption is the last to come on stream. The first part would always be the commercial part. And that's why when you hear from anybody who is presently playing in that, in that sector, you're electrifying the transport sector first, because people need to move. There are fundamental problems about the transport system in this country. One of them, I mentioned about this yesterday, is the fact that it's heavily cash dependent. And so when we are putting electric vehicle and electrifying the transport system, we're also innovating about how the payment system would come in. Because once we can lock in and secure the payment systems, we can get financiers to invest and finance that part of it. We can begin to get data that helps us determine where money should go to. As well as the fact that you can decide to see that there's no electricity in Nigeria, which is very erroneous, because the truth is, as big an economy as Nigeria is, electricity exists. The question is, what kind of an energy mix do we have? We have an energy mix that is highly dependent on fossil fuel. A very small fraction of it is renewable. Now, if indeed the evolution of electric vehicles would start from the two-wheelers and three-wheelers, which we call the light EVs, then it might match and integrate nicely with renewable energy solutions, because the battery packs are smaller, they can be charged outside the vehicles, they can be swapped to encourage the behaviors of the drivers, and you can layer technology and payments to ensure that that investment in that commercial venture makes sense. And that is why companies are bringing in vehicles and using them for ride hailing, for four-wheelers, and some are using them with different models for three-wheelers or two-wheelers in the logistics space. So what the story is telling us, which we'll soon find out, are the guys who are pretenders and the guys who are really playing. Because while a lot of those who are thinking about sustainability are trying to ensure that the entire value chain is covered, some are just concerned about bringing the vehicles in and waiting for whatever happens down the road. They've got no clue how the vehicles will be repaired. They've got no understanding on how the lithium-ion batteries function. They've got no idea how dangerous a lithium-ion battery is. It's a time bomb. If you've seen an explosion of a lithium-ion battery, no matter how small it is, you can imagine the kind of explosive devices that we've got in vehicles that we have all over the place. And that dovetails back to the first panel session where they mentioned about some vehicles that are coming to this country. It's a time bomb. Everyone is at risk. And as fast as we can get standards to come in, the better it is for us. Not just having the standards, but implementing it. So the storyteller in me is saying that as a part of that journey, we are seeing everything come together in ways that gives confidence that something right could happen. But we need to educate more people, more businesses about the effort and how it's coming together, so that we don't think, because the gentleman here had mentioned how much if I get a vehicle for 23 million and it has to be financing, it will come down. The cost of these vehicles will come to be even more affordable. There are some dynamics about the Nigerian transport system that we need to consider. Our market is a 99%, well, let me be nice, 95% used car market. Yes. And we're bringing EVs that are supposed to be brand new. Yeah. There's a temptation to bring EVs that are fairly used in. And without understanding the risk, we are putting that nascent market at a huge disadvantage. Because the moment you have an explosion from a vehicle in motion, God forbid, or parked, everybody starts saying, no, we don't want to get into these vehicles. And if you remember what happened when we had gas stations built in within, I worked in oil and gas for about 17 years, built in within residential areas, and we started having explosions. Then we had landlords and other residential owners or property owners saying we don't want to have your gas station within our facility. And then that is when regulations started coming in. Yeah. You must have a certain regulatory distances from overhead water power lines, regulatory distances from underground tanks and all of that. It looks like that's what's going to happen with EVs. It's until we start having those disastrous things happening before they start enforcing regulations and putting that together. So we're going to get to a point, and let me put this very bold statement out there. We're going to get to a point where there's going to be a hard reset. Everybody's going to come and do all sorts of things, but there'll be a hard reset, and everybody goes in down, and then we start rising. And those guys who have equipped themselves by building an ecosystem around their businesses will be the first to come back up. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a bold take. Please clap, please clap, please clap, please clap. That was an amazing take, but bold one. But yes, so true. Electricity is such a very huge problem for Nigeria that a lot of our culture circumvents it. And also Nigerians culturally are very averse to change, right? Anything that just causes small wahala or small problem, they are always very jittery around it. So if we get getting the new ones in, right, probably the used market begins to flourish, and then it just takes off from there. So thank you so much for that contribution. Another round of applause, please. Next question is to Mr. Detayo. You've been building mobility platforms since the University of Ibadan, your time at University of Ibadan, and you raised $24 million earlier this year. Please clap for that, I beg. Please clap for that. Clap for that. What does the next stage of IMAX look like, and how does that capital change what's possible?
All right, sure. I think it's been mentioned already. I would just emphasize it. It's data. And that is why AWS is sitting amongst us here, because that's what really brings it all together. Data meets AI, right? Managing risks, battery risks, motor risks, controller risks, payment risks, default risks, and so on. The only way you address all of those effectively is the data layer. A lot of the other parts involved in the value chain, even today, are already becoming commoditized. Maybe 3 years ago, you had an advantage by knowing which manufacturer had a higher quality EV or higher quality battery. Today, you can go on the internet, connect with supply chain partners directly, buy DIY kits, and put together a decent high quality battery, right? I've done that myself for my home, for my house. I put my batteries together, right? I bought grade A cells, put them together, bought my panels, installed them with a friend, and I'm basically off grid. So that's 3 years ago. Now it's not a competitive advantage that your car is better than my car. So the question then is, where is that advantage, or where is that multiplier effect coming from? It's in the data layer, right? And for us at Max, we've always understood that before we shifted fully into EVs, we'd worked with ICE engines, petrol engines for about 6-7 years. In that journey, we had onboarded, 50,000 riders across Nigeria. So when we shifted full focus to EVs, because there are two parts to this innovation as a whole. One is the hardware innovation itself. A decent battery, a functioning electric controller, a functioning electric motor, and all the other components, hardware components. But there's the other side, which is the data layer, is the behavior of the riders, what they really want, fundamentally, irrespective of whether it's a nuclear-powered vehicle or a solar-powered vehicle or a water-powered vehicle or whatever your energy source is. And what we've seen is that is what ultimately guarantees success. Some of what we are seeing with some of what's going on, not just in Nigeria, but across Africa. And we've seen folks, who are raising tons of money, right? Not even just in Africa, folks in Asia who've raised hundreds of millions of dollars and have come to replicate their Asian model here in Africa, in Nigeria, in Kenya. And I'm just, sometimes I look at all this money, I'm like, wow, all of this money is going to be literally set on fire. I'm not prophesying, but by looking at what they're doing, I'm like, what's wrong with these people? But I get it, right? The Nigerian user is different from the Kenyan user. But it's not just because the Nigerian human being is different. It's because the Nigerian operating environment is different. And I mean, my colleague made the point earlier around They say there's no power in Nigeria. Yes and no. If you know where to go, you can get your power. But is that a question of at what price, at what location, and a bunch of other dynamics? So understanding the dynamics of our operating environment is, and I'm linking this back to data, because it's data that drives design, right? And that design is then what drives your supply chain, your production, and your execution. So when you understand what the market wants, what it needs, how the drivers think, what is value to them, not to you. I'll give an example. Battery range. Someone thinks, okay, well, as long as the range is okay and I can put battery stations everywhere, people will come in. Are you sure? So in our case, for example, you ask a question and say, okay, I know how many times my riders buy petrol a day. So if I'm going to build and electrify that industry, I have to also make sure that they're not swapping more times a day than they buy fuel. So if my drivers buy fuel 5 times a day, I have to make sure that they're not swapping more than 5 times a day. It doesn't matter if I have battery stations everywhere. Now, you don't learn that in India, because in India, they might be swapping 10 times a day. And it's okay, because that's the culture. Another thing is the use case. If I go to Philippines, or I go to Vietnam, or I go to Taiwan, I see a product like Gogoro there, which is fantastic, right? What is the use case? If a lot of the use case for motorcycles there is personal mobility, in my market here, what is a lot of the use case for motorcycles? It's commercial transportation. So if I want to superimpose a personal mobility strategy in a market where it is primarily mobility, it just doesn't work. I just said 2. There are 10 dynamics or 20. So you have to understand this. And the underlying dynamic here is what? Is the data on behavior, on how they're moving. So in our case as well, of all the historical drivers that we've worked with, we know how they move. We know where they're going to. We know when they start operating in the morning. We know when they stop operating at night. We know when they take breaks in the afternoon. And all of those data points feed back into your design strategy. So to your question, I think the long and short of it is, it's that data that you absolutely need. And that drives every single thing else that you are doing.
Yeah, thank you so much. Please, a round of applause for that response. Telemetry is just the way, it's just the way for enhancing, because like you said, it's what differentiates you from your competitors. If everyone is doing it the same way, if everyone is doing it the same strategy, trying to bring in stuff into the country without considering all the parameters are involved, what differentiates you is data. So that was an amazing response. Please, another round of applause for that response. Might have to speed up because of time. But my next question is to Mildred. The whole lag ride model rests on drivers choosing EVs over petrol cars. What does it actually take to convert a Lagos driver, building to his question earlier, financing, training, daily reliability, and where do you still lose them?
Okay, thank you. I think I was reading the question, because I couldn't hear you properly.
Do you want me to
lag ride model rests on drivers choosing EVs over petrol cars. What does it actually take to what? Convert
a Lagos driver.
Financing, training, daily reliability, and where do we still lose them? Okay. The first line, when they say the whole of lag ride model rests on drivers choosing EVs over petrol cars, I don't know. That's a bit of a mess. I don't know. I don't know where they got that from, but we have 2 options in lag ride. That is true. We have the EV option and the petrol option. That is true. Now, both vehicles have their peculiarities. As most of the members of the panel have pointed out, panel 2 and panel 1, we have the issue of infrastructure with EV. Yes. We have the issue of volatility with petrol. Yes. And like he mentioned, what is happening now, we see the challenge of petrol prices. And with every little thing that happens, I think you mentioned that earlier as well, there's a challenge with oil. While those challenges are there, EV naturally is the new preferred option, not necessarily a lag ride option. All right, I need to make that clear. It's the new preferred option. However, we still run both options on the platform. All right. Why we run both options is because we are open to being flexible and letting our drivers, we call them captains because they are professional, to have the option to choose. You know, when the EV started, there's a thing of adopting to the society. Right, that is true. So with the lag ride model, if we had settled with only the EV, that would have been a big challenge. And as you know, when the lag ride model actually started, the EV wasn't a thing at the time. So we started with regular petrol. But yes, today the EV has come in. It's a huge choice for a lot of people. Talking about driving range that he mentioned, I mean, when you do the assessment and with the kind of EVs we run at the moment, there is a somewhat higher advantage, right? I mean, look at the issue of petrol. I know some months ago, or with the lag ride new model, actually, we support our captains with both petrol and EV charging, right? Sorry, excuse me. We have a daily amount we apportion to them, subsidized to manage the work. But recently you find out that when the EV guys do their charge, you know, they can run for almost the whole day. But with the petrol guys, that could be a challenge, right? So yes, the EV is the preferred option, quote and unquote, but not necessarily a lag ride thing. All right, so I need to make that clear. So actually take to what? Convert a Lagos driver. Okay, and where do we still lose them? Well, to convert a Lagos driver, you know, with Lagos, transportation is quite peculiar. Okay, we've mentioned that here. And for the vision of lag ride and the chairman, the brain behind, you know, the new lag ride, Chief Diana Chen, it's not just about transportation. It's about dignifying the driver. Okay? Why can't drivers be dignified? Why can't transportation be dignified? That's the whole idea and concept of the lag ride. When you see my vehicles, they're different. They're different for a reason. We know the cost to put that difference in the market, but we take our chances because of the vision. All right? So we want transportation to be dignified. We want drivers, we call them captains, as I said, to be dignified. So how do we start? We start with a training college. We have a compulsory training system. Every lag ride driver must do. And if you do not cross the training, you don't get to be a captain. Now, the training includes, the initial training I'm talking about includes different aspects of driving. We even engage professionals, government agencies to come and do part of this training. Road signs, traffic rules, being, white line, yellow line, traffic lights. And of course, so many other things are involved in the training. Now we even go down to ethics, right? How to be a professional driver, how to communicate with your riders, what is expected of you, right? As a captain. Now that's as a driver. And what is, what you're expected to give to your rider, for their comfort, for their peace, and things like that. So when you say, where do we lose them? Well, at the moment, when you say, where do we lose them? I'm trying to find the right way to answer that question because...
What is still holding some people back from converting to EV from petrol vehicles? Let
me say this again. With commercial drivers, the most important thing to them is the economics of scale. The moment they can, based on their peculiarity of customers, driving range, their targets, so long as they can convert the numbers and see that using the EV saves them that huge cost. Because the biggest cost in being a driver or doing transportation is the fueling, which powers the oil, let me put it that way, that powers the machine to move. For petrol cars, it's the petrol. For EV cars, it's the battery. So the moment the economics of scale works for the driver, they stay within that range. Why I would say not everybody has converted to the EV, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think it has, number one, is about preference. people still need some drivers from my experience, because we have quite a wide range of drivers. They still need to, I think it's a mental thing, right? They still need to accept it in full, but the moment my drivers have the EV experience, the question changes to, can I drive an EV car too? Please, how can I permanently get one? How can I permanently get one? Because we have two options, right? So if you're not on time with our rental system, you may not get the EV option. So it's not just what is stopping people, but number one, there's adaptability, there's the mind consciousness, and there's this thing of power. Oh, the car, let it not fail me on the road. But we are overcoming all of these things. And even us as a business, we can see it, we have the skill, we have data that gives us the information. So yes, we have a plan of a full conversion, but then again, we cannot force it on everybody. All right? People need to have the education, people need to have the experience, and then the comforts that convinces them. However, the EVs are a fantastic option. And every time I have a driver who converts to an EV for whatever reason, the next question is, can I really drive this car? It becomes, how can I get the EV permanently for my, rental and daily use on the platform?
Amazing, amazing. Please, a round of applause for that response. Thank you so much, ma, for that response. The next question is to Siberi. You build partnerships across East and West Africa. What separates a mobility company that scales globally on cloud from one that stalls at MVP? What do you see operators getting right and getting wrong?
I would, sorry, can you hear me? Yes. Like I said from the onset, the AWS entrance into this conversation is around data, because data is what fuels EVs. The data is what fuels the decisions, like the business decisions. And I'm looking at it from, when you're talking about scaling, it's the business part of it. It's not just for building it, but then the business, around it. So the difference, that scales globally on cloud from one that stores at MVP, is what they basically use it for. One thing is, with technology, as an individual, you might adopt technology because you just want to find out. But from a business point of view, if you cannot quickly tie the technology move to revenue, you will try it out, but it's not making business sense. I think for the business people here, yes, I want to, use the cloud. I want to use the technology in the cloud. But if from day one, I can't tie this thing to revenue, which is why my business is set up in the first place, then they would not move forward. So a good example would be if today a mobility company was to adopt AI, what they choose to adopt, if you can quickly tie it to revenue in the first 3 months, then quickly you will see that they would scale. Say, for instance, something that's been talked about by Max and Co, it's around forecasting. If the driver knows that, or rather, if Max as an organization or anyone who's like in the business side of it knows that on Monday morning, I can tell what demand in what part of using Lagos, because we're in Lagos now. Am I going to get more demand in Igondo? Or I just want to keep my cars in VI because it's nice versus the revenue. So if I use technology, if I adopted a technology solution to solve a problem, and very easily that solution was telling me that, man, stay in Surulere on Tuesdays more than you should be in the nice VI. So now that business would want more of that. So the scaling of the cloud, and remember, we are an infrastructure that has the application, on it. So now whoever scales with us moves from MVP, to now production and all, is the person that the business, the solution, the technology put in front of them quickly was tied to revenue. They saw the value and then they went full scale. So that's what it is. Tied very quickly to revenue.
Yes. Thank you for that response. Please, a round of applause. Yes, I think our final question will be before the general question. Our final question will be to Adebusola. You've worked on driver development and stakeholder engagements. The EV transition can either lift drivers up or leave them behind. What does an inclusive transition for drivers actually look like in practice?
All right, thank you. Drivers. I was just mentioning here that the bottom line for drivers is the economics. Once they get value, I think that once that box is ticked, they are okay. Okay, so inclusivity has to do with when everybody is involved and no one is left behind. Okay. What we do at SGX Mobility is, or one of the things we do is driving the adoption of e-mobility in Nigeria, in Africa as a whole. And the way we are going about this is by engaging every stakeholder, you know, everyone that contributes to this process. Yeah, so for the drivers, what they would like to see. And okay, if I may also add, the advent of electric vehicles, this industry has brought about significant increase in opportunities, employment opportunities, if you know what I mean. So there's a lot of opportunities for drivers, and yeah, the way we engage these drivers is by putting schemes together that are attractive to them, okay? Because, like I mentioned, they just care about, many a times, the first thing they care about is about the economics. Once they're able to take home an amount on a daily basis, they also want predictability, you understand? When they are able to predict their daily activities, the number of trips, how we are able to minimize their downtime. Once they get confidence in that regard, then you are able to gain their trust. So that's one way in which we engage these drivers. Of course, we have other ways. We've put together incentives to attract them. So when we run our training programs, we encourage them to join through some incentive programs. That also intrigues them, and they come along. Yeah, basically. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that answer. Yes. So we will have a final question, but this is a general question. I would like an opinion from everyone. So the question is: imagine it's June 2031, 5 years from today. Wow, 5 years. Wow. What single change in Nigeria's EV landscape would you most want to point to and say, we made that happen? And what is your team doing this year to make it true? Who wants to go first? Okay. Perry, please go first.
Because I'm holding the mic, I'll probably go first. So the way I want to look at it is, I don't know the age grade of people in the room, but if we remember when the mobile network started, you know, a SIM card, I remember the first SIM card I bought was 40,000 naira. Today, the mobile operators give you for free, you know. So I know he also mentioned, he said that now we're talking about price for EVs. But, and when we say EVs, it's all levels, you know. I know for one thing, when I think EV, I only think cars. But even coming here today, I'm seeing EVs in 3 different, you know, I didn't know there was an EV keke, you know, and all that. So in 2031, as AWS, what we are recognizing is that the cost for the vehicles will come down. It's not really about these things. The next level of it is the ecosystem around it. Today we can, I can't remember the last time I was in a bank, but at the beginning, it started with an expensive phone and an expensive SIM card. But now those things are not the thing. It's now the platforms that have been built on top of that network. So the EVs today, the entry point is looking this much because this is the foundation that needs to happen before the many things are going to now layer on top. And for us as AWS, typically to get to the next level for an individual in this room, you'll be thinking, you know what, I have to stay abroad to where the information is. I have to go abroad for where the technology is. But AWS Cloud basically puts in the hand of everybody here the same technology that BMW is deploying in Germany. With AWS Cloud, you have access to the same service to build for that ecosystem. So that for us is where we're going to look back in Nigeria to say, if the AWS Cloud wasn't accessible to people in this room today, they probably would need how many years to catch up? But with the brains I see in the room, with the businesses, with everybody, we have the same access to the technology that will take us to the next level. If we're talking about AI today, you don't need to travel to have access to Amazon Bedrock. You can start building those applications today. So that's what I would say. And that for me is what will make us look to the future and said, we were part of what made technology accessible for Nigerian people, Nigerian builders, Nigerian innovators to be part of this conversation.
Amazing.
Thank you. I think it's an interesting question. And I wonder if I should say what we're doing now, what we did, right? Because when we built the first electric charging station in Victoria Island here at Adiola Deku, it was right before the subsidy was announced. And I remember that while we were putting it together, people came in and they looked at us and they were wondering, what were you thinking? What are you thinking? How do you see this evolving? And do not forget, if we got to the point where we're building the first charge station commercially available to the public at that time, it means we had started conversations and iterations way before then. And now we've moved on to about 10 different locations here within Lagos. One of which is, if you step out there and just stand by there, you see a couple of DC chargers right opposite, which is run by Kore. Today, we complete every week about 1,000 charging sessions for four-wheelers. And it's not strictly for Cap Zero, but it's for all other players who are in. So it's not locked in to us. So the idea that there's one singular thing that you need to do to get that ecosystem to run perfectly by one person, it's a fallacy. I mean, I like that word. But the truth is, collaboration becomes very important. I remember that some players that we had spoken to earlier during the nascent stage, we're still in nascent stage anyway, of the market. And we're talking about training technicians and getting them to be up to par so that we can fix and diagnose electric vehicles like the four-wheelers. And the guy had said to me plainly that I'm only training my technicians to fix my own cars. I don't care about anybody else. And of course, it made me see how myopic the thinking of that particular industry leader was. I'm sure by now you'd have realized that it's not a skill set that you can box in and claim that this are certified by me, because it's open secret. Just like Tyad said about DIY, anybody can do these things now. So the point is, we need to first collaborate. We started in a bit of silos because not everybody got that vision the same way. But now that we are getting to the point where we're understanding the impact it can do for us economically, we're seeing the value it's bringing to the table. It's the time when we need to sit down together and find a way of making sure it works. Now, we don't have standards for the kind of vehicles we bring into the country. So we have a lot of cars that have different receptacle or the charging guns. It means now, if I have to deploy a charger in any location, I need to start providing for guns for different models of vehicles. In fact, we don't even know how many cars have different guns. So that data is coming to me, and I can tell how many times this particular gun that has a particular standard is being used. And that would help me to deploy my charging stations going forward. It speaks to data. But data is isolated, it's not central. It means if I really want to go ahead of my competitors, I can deploy based on data that is available to me, and they would not know why. So, but if we sit down in a room and understand that the demand is there, there is a demand. We all cannot at this point in time, we cannot fulfill that demand. So we all have to collaborate and find a way to make sure that we we can all benefit. We can safeguard our businesses. We can make sure it's sustainable enough for us to run it. Whether it's as a 3-wheeler business, whether it's as a 2-wheeler business, whether it's as a 4-wheeler business, every step that we take right now is contributing to what happens, not 5 years' time, it's happening to it 10 years and more. Because if you bring batteries that do not have the right cycles, that do not have the right quality grades, those batteries will begin to have issues and degrade faster in less than 2 years, not 5. And then issues then begin to happen with customer trust, the end user's trust about the cycle, the batteries that are coming in. And then we also start looking at second life of the batteries. Can the batteries be adapted for other use? Do we have certifications to make it happen? Data, like we said, still forms the center of it, but data is isolated right now. We need to have a way of getting it right, and that's where the MPAN comes in to see how they can make all of that happen. So every step we're doing has collaboration in it, and that's the only way we can point to something that we've done, not as one person, but as a collective team. Thank you.
Please, a round of applause.
I would start by saying the change is already here. We're already making a lot of impact. And I can just only imagine how much impact would have been made in 2031. Okay, so when electric vehicles started, a lot of people thought the focus would be for first adopters or large corporations or only the affluent people. Okay, but as you can see, even the common man, as it were, already has access to electric vehicles through the 3-wheelers. So one way I can say my team is already making impact. Of course, we are making impact in numerous ways by making available jobs for people in that sector. We are also building the ecosystem to serve for the adoption. So we are putting in place ops, swapping locations. You rightly mentioned that we have to partner, work together. So we are already providing that enabling environment to have conversations with other operators where we can come together and further build that ecosystem. So that's one. Also, with regards awareness, okay, a lot of people are getting more aware about what EVs are about. Drivers are getting more informed. For them, it's not about climate change, blah, blah. So they are getting more informed, and that information is also bringing about more job opportunities in that sector. So we have technicians that need to be trained. Yeah, so there's a lot of work being done and impacts made in that aspect. And also for the end users, okay, at least they are getting value in terms of getting access to vehicles, affordable transportation. Like it was mentioned, we are on boats, so you can order cheap services using the 3-wheelers, as long as that operation is available within your area. Yeah, so the end users gain our trust and they get access to affordable transportation. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if 5 years is enough time, but hopefully so much happens between now and 2031. But for us, we want to look back in the future and be able to say that we've done for the EV industry, especially in the 2-wheeler category, right? And maybe the 3-wheeler category as well. What MTN did for the telco industry in Nigeria. When you look back 25 years ago, 2001, there was no precedence for what MTN was about to do in Nigeria. They got that license, they went all in, they put thousands of base stations across Nigeria. They built incredible logistics and supply chain systems to deliver diesel to those generators. And I mean tens of thousands of them every single day till now. I don't know how they do it, right? Even in places where there's insecurity, they still somehow do it, right? When they were doing it then, a lot of people looked at them and laughed at them. That, oh, this is Nigeria. You are South Africans. What do you know about Nigeria, right? But Within 5 years, people were like, what's going on here? Within 10 years, they had built an unparalleled brand. Till this day. But when you look at the courage, the foresight, the conviction behind what they did, I think they recently reacquired IHS again, right? They never quite let them go, right? In that sense, had very creative buyback clauses in there. Because that infrastructure is the foundation of the product they deliver to every single one of their customers today, including me, right? And that is the blueprint that we run with at Max, is that courage, right? To be everywhere you go, everywhere people go, for them to be able to access EVs in a safe way, that's in our mission. In an affordable way, that's part of our mission as well. And also, right, making it accessible to everyone that needs it. And of course, sustainability, which is why we're doing EVs in the first instance. So in 5-10 years, we want to be able to look back and say, what MTN did to telcos, we did to EVs, particularly two-wheelers in Nigeria.
Okay. Like my co-panelist said, 5 years might not be enough time. So we're going to take it back a bit and then come forward. You know, some years ago, okay, first of all, let me answer the first part of the question. What do we think is that single thing that can change a lot of things in Nigeria? And a lot of my panelists have said the same, my co-panelists, data. Data is very important. It's like the oil of almost anything and everything in the world today. Some people say data is gold. You know, you hear that, oh, data is gold. It is gold because data determines the design, like you said. Data helps us to understand the fleet movement, right? Data helps us to understand energy consumption. Data helps us to understand rider's choice, right? So many things. So yes, there must be data, availability of correct data. We must be able to put those things together properly and actual true data. Then there must be collaboration. There must be collaboration between the financial systems, the energy infrastructure, and of course the software. I think the first set of panelists mentioned things about where the software meets hardware. There's some, twitches here and there. All of those things must be put together for real change to happen. The financiers must work with the energy generators and know that, they have access to these things. There's money to finance these things for it to work, right? Because it's not just about putting the vehicles on the road. It's ability to have the vehicles being sustained and staying on the roads. So at the end of the day, when you look at it, you say, who is going to make the most money? Is it really the people manufacturing the vehicles or the other services around the vehicles? I think in the next 5, 10, 15 years, those guys are going to be the real people in the business, okay? So going back to what my team is doing, some years ago before today, CIG Motors, which is the parent company and the sister company to Lagride, as of Lagride of today, we already sent about 10 personnel to China for training, but this is about 7, 8 years ago. About 2 years ago, we sent about 30. And this time around, we even sent young people from Yaba College of Technology, both at the OND level and the HND level. This is real data, real information, right? And this time around, the first time, they went for about 3 months. This time around, the second set of young people, they went for 18 months. So there must be education. Both that's education and the technical part of it. So there must be education both ways. And my company, my team is really doing that. Okay, we need to send out more informative and academic information, something that would educate the people. This is for the drivers now, the captains and the people that just have EVs for their personal use. And then education for the technicians. This is human capital development. And my team, through the sister company CIG, because it's a group, so we all have our responsibilities. We have a full ecosystem. Their responsibility, really, they do the training. right? So we select from the driver's side, they select from the technical angle. So my team is already 100% involved in that. For the students that were on the OND level, a number of them have gone back to, in fact, all of them, not a number, have gone back because we divided the team of 30. So they have all gone back to do their HND. Today, they're still in school doing their HND. Now, for the HND guys, they're currently working in the organization in the technical part of things till today. So we're not just, it's not about what we're going to do in the future. It's what we have started doing and what we intend to keep doing. Collaboration is major for us. I got the telephone numbers and, because there's even so much to collaborate on. It's not just about the infrastructure and the finances, the people, the drivers, the business. We're talking about the commercials here. I mean, that's why I'm here. We're talking about the commercials here. So there must be collaboration even within the big wigs in the EV commercial industry. So we can stream and we can know what we're doing and have a real economics of scale out there. One thing that can keep the EVs on the road, accessibility, confidence that this thing is here to stay and this thing is real, right? So when the financiers come in, they're going to make it they're going to make it real. They're going to make it accessible. They're going to make it look true. So there must be collaboration from all ends. There must be education. And that is what my team is already currently doing. And I must say, talk about technology. Technology must work. And we must all understand that. Today, I can tell you that LagRide is the #1 platform, 100% technology driven. When it comes to safety, when it comes to security, when it comes to every other thing, payments, everything. So yes, these things we will continue to do. My team will continue to improve on. And all I can say is watch this space. Watch the LagRide space. Thank you.
Please give a resounding round of applause to our wonderful, amazing panelists. Please give them a resounding round of applause, please. Thank you so much for giving us all of the information you've given us today. These are things that people sit down to pay. People pay for these things. So thank you so much for giving it to us freely and for sharing your own ideas about the future of EV and cloud and AI in Nigeria. Thank you so much. Please, another round of applause before we take a picture with them. Okay, so if you want to take pictures with the panelists, please come forward to the stage so that we can take a group picture. You want to what? Okay, after this we eat. After this we eat. After this we eat. Please come forward, please. Yes, please come forward quickly, so we can do this and go and eat. Do this quickly so we can go and eat. Thank you. I need just put me up. I was just assure you something. I should have gone since I had a meeting in like 3 minutes. Let's go. Don't worry. Okay. Let me go out. Hey, I'm feeling bouncing. Please, that might meet now. I'm supposed to have gone. Just tell them that after the outbreak, we had an account and we want to announce the incident.
Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Before we go, we had a hackathon and we want to All right, and we want to present it to the winners. Please, can we be fast, please?
Where is Prince? Prince.
So we had an hackathon, and we understand that we have a lot of talents, a lot of brilliant students in Nigerian universities. So we organized a very simple hackathon that lasted for 12 hours last week, Saturday. So we gave them some set of problem statements, and we asked them to develop a very simple solution. And we have series of reviews, and then we have our top 5 teams here. So the 5th team is
So to present, we would like the president of MPAN to come and present one of the awards. Thank you. Round of applause, please.
So the team that came 5th place is E-Evo. E-Evo. If you have a representative here or your team, please come forward.
Represent.
E-Evo. Please, a round of applause for them, please, as they come up stage.
Okay, they have a representative there. Yes. Yes, hold yourself. Oh yeah, can you shake?
Yes, welcome to our solution for the AI hackathon. So, our solution for the fifth the issues of fraud theft is an AI/ML approach solution whereby users can see their fleets as they are moving, and you can track each one of them based on their location. However, each of any of the vehicle is not a route, it is going to be flagged, just like this, which are seen red. So users can check each of their vehicles, each of their fleets, how they are doing. So this is one of the user now. So this is the car moving out there, the route. So that will details there. Okay, Mr. Make our car for his phone number, the speed, is moving with how many game tires worked for the day, and other details, approach route that is currently passing. So currently is a Lagos Island. So another person that is tagged here, which is second person. So is Sudiademi. So Sudiademi has been flagged. So for route deviation, it has a fail level of 77%, but it has been flagged for route deviation. So and the other system is going to give you the details. So we have AI ML.
To school? Every day, millions of Nigerians move. To work, to school, to opportunities. But with fuel prices ranging from 1,200 Naira to 1,400 Naira per liter, movement is becoming more expensive. The future of mobility demands a new approach. This June, innovators, industry leaders, builders, and technology enthusiasts will gather at One with AI, powering mobility and EV ecosystem with AWS. As part of this experience, we're inviting the next generation of problem solvers to take on a challenge. The One with AI Hackathon is your opportunity to create solutions for EV ecosystems, AI mobility systems, and AWS cloud infrastructure. Form a team of 3 to 5. Win from a 1 million Naira prize pool. Get mentorship, certificates, and exclusive Arthurite merchandise. Then present your solution live at One with AI, powering mobility and EV ecosystem with AWS on June 11th. Registration closes June 5. Hackathon begins June 6. Click the registration link below to secure your spot. Don't just talk about the future. Build it. One with AI.